Hello and welcome back to Thinking About Star Realms. In this video, we're going to be playing Chapter 3, Mission 4 of the campaign. As always, if you have any strategy tips or think that I made the wrong decision at any point, please put it in the comments. Now, if you notice, we started off 10 life ahead of our opponent, but they started off with an Imperial Fighter in their deck, plus, 2 Imperial Fighters, 2 Federation Shuttles, and 2 trade bots in their deck, while we get 2 Gambits, the Energy Shield, which will prevent 1 damage per turn, and we can scrap to draw a card, and the Savage Operation, which lets us put a card from our discard pile on top of our deck, and as the last video showed, I am not very good at using. So they start off with a much better deck, so we need to maybe slow play this to kind of be able to outplay them. Unfortunately, in this market, there does not seem to be, any good trade or even good trade targets. Maybe the Royal Redoubt, but even that is not that good. So I feel like there's 2 viable plays here. Discarding the Viper and buying a Battle Screecher, or discarding a Viper and buying 2 Explorers. I'm not really keen on keeping the Viper for the 1 damage, just because, it's the early game. 1 damage now is not going to be paying off as much as being able to, play a card we buy this turn 2-3 times more in the game. So obviously, discard the Viper. And I do feel like taking the Battle Screecher, because that will give us a lot of trade row control for whatever strategy we want to take. And also, it is making a super fast rushdown approach a bit harder for our opponent. And as I said before, the longer the game goes, the less the difference in our starting decks will matter, because we'll have, more rounds to catch up on deck quality. Obviously, if I could have gotten the Defense Center or the Royal Redoubt, that would have been better. But I don't think it's worth scrapping the Energy Shield right now to potentially draw another Scout to get the Defense Center or Battle Mech. I think, the ability to block a bunch of damage, because it's blocking 1 damage a turn. Or, if you're playing against a human opponent, it blocks 1 damage per attack. So pay attention to the Energy Shield. And if your opponent has it, make sure you're all done dealing damage before you actually apply the damage to your opponent. But yeah, let's grab the Battle Screecher. And we got a Patrol Mech, which would have been a better card to buy, because that gives us both damage and trade. But, we get some trade row control off the Battle Screecher. Okay, our opponent took the Battle Mech. Again, we're discarding a card. Again, discarding a Viper, same reason as last time. So we can either get the other Battle Screecher, or we can get the Patrol Mech. The Patrol Mech is definitely tempting, because it is, I think, a better card overall with a Battle Screecher, but having both Battle Screechers means that we're in the driver's seat with the trade row control. That means we do have the beginnings of some blob synergy, which we can manufacture by, wiping the market repeatedly to pull out more blobs, so that's good for us. Patrol Mech or Screecher, both are very good cards. I do feel like doubling down on the blobs right now. Maybe it's a mistake. Very likely it's a mistake, but, YOLO, I guess. Put your opinion in the comments, because I'm really interested to hear what you guys would think. Yeah, So pause the video, put your opinion in the comments, and then we can go on and see how the game turns out. And we get a blob fighter, which supports the battle creature buy, or maybe our opponent will just buy it out from underneath us. Okay. So we can get the blob fighter and then, take the patrol mech, imperial fighter out of the market. Do we need to be concerned about our opponent having a lot of trade? Not really. The only big trade cards they have is the Federation shuttle. So we can leave the battle cruiser and Royal Redoubt on the market to keep it clogged. Ooh. Battle pod. Don't mind if I do. And yeah, we need to take out the Imperial Fighter for sure, because the more of them they have, the better they are. We need to take out the space station to mess with that Star Market's energy. And we need to take out the patrol mech because it's a good all-around card. But I'm hesitant but I don't want to scrap the battle cruiser and Royal Redoubt because we have no trade left. So we want to minimize the risk of turning over a good card for our opponent, while all three of these are cards that are good for our opponent. So presumably whatever we will turn over is going to be not better than these. Yep, not really. I mean, they're not getting the Brain World. Trade Pod is hella slow, and Blob Destroyer is a good overall card, but, it would be nice if it hangs around and we can get it next turn. We'll see. Yuck. So we can't quite afford the Blob Destroyer. That is unfortunate. But we can get the Blob Wheel, which, one, lets us activate our Blob ally abilities. Two, we can scrap that for, Brain World or Battle Cruiser. Brain World, really good card. Yeah. So, overall, not bad of a turn. And yes, we did lose a little bit of the life gap we had to start off with, but I think we're doing good. Only losing 4 life relative to our opponent. It's, it's solid because they just have a much better opening than we do. We just gotta keep on keeping on. Also, this market right now, it's fairly stale, so it's good to keep it that way because, whenever we have trade, we can just open it up with our battle screechers. Guess they didn't have enough for the Royal Redoubt. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Now, okay, just this is already Blob Destroyer trade. So, okay, my plan here is that I do want to see what the Blob Fighter will draw before I make my decision. But I kind of... So out of this market, we want to get rid of the Missile Bot for sure. But yeah, we need to play the Blob Screecher to be able to buy the Blob Destroyer, so I think we have to go Blob Screecher, then Battle Pod. I'd prefer to play Battle Pod first to see what will turn over under the Missile Bot, and then when we buy the Blob Destroyer, then be able to scrap both if they're good with the Blob Screecher, but that's not an option, so we'll just use the Blob Screecher to scrap the Missile Bot. It's a good aggressive and deck thinning card. We don't want our opponent to have that, and we're not going to have 6 to get both the Blob Destroyer and Missile Bot, and out of the 2 I want the Blob Destroyer more. So get rid of that. Stealth Needle, another good card. I will take the Blob Destroyer here, though Stealth Needle is also a very good buy, but Blob Destroyer is a better card in our deck because, it's a solid 6 damage, plus it has a good ally ability to get through our opponent's bases. And we'll let them have the Fed Shuttle. Yes, it synergizes well with their existing deck, but it's not really doing all that much. It does get them closer to, getting the Blob Wheel, the Brain World, the Battle Cruiser type cards, but I'm less concerned about that as compared to the Stealth Needle, which is just a better overall card. I'd love to grab that Imperial Frigate and or deny our opponent it, but that cannot happen. At least we take back the authority lead for a second, and they get the frigate. I think this is a fairly straightforward discard, is it? Yeah. This would be a Brain World if we didn't have to discard, but we do have to discard, so discard that. And I don't think I want the Battle Cruiser right now. We can get rid of the Fed Shuttle and Cutter. Cutter we for sure want to get rid of. Fed Shuttle, I'm conflicted on, because I'm not sure if I care if our opponent gets it, but I want to kind of... We will synergize reasonably in their deck, but a lot of cards will synergize reasonably in their deck. So I think I just talked myself out of scrapping that. The Cutter we want to scrap just because it's a good overall card. We could buy it ourselves, but I don't want... without blue allies, it's just going to be 2 trade and 4 authority, which it's a decent play, but I do want to stay aggressive because the rest of our deck is aggressive, and that little bit of authority is just not really getting us to our likely victory condition, which is quickly, powering down, damaging down our opponent before the fact that they have trade is gonna, allow them to get to the Brain World or Battle Cruiser or whatever. Hopefully that makes sense. Do we take the Barter World? I mean, everything that I've just said about the Cutter holds true with the Barter World, but if we buy now, we're denying our opponent it, plus we can scrap it for damage if we want to. Kind of like it, yeah. I think like a thick-ass Cutter. Gets us 2 trade or 2 authority, depending on what we need, and then we can scrap it for 5. I like that play. Battle Barge, good aggressive card, especially if you have bases. Again, just a little bit shorter Brain World. But hey, Barter World came up, so we can use that to get the Imperial Frigate or Battle Barge. Okay, like, Imperial Frigate's better if you can get an ally because you get an extra damage off it, plus you can scrap it for a draw, but Battle Barge is going to be dealing 1 more damage consistently, and if we somehow do end up with a bunch of bases, the Battle Barge is better. Plus, the AI just likes to stack bases. It kind of has a couple. Got the Battle Barge. 2 Imperial Frigates. That's no fun. So do I go ahead with my plan to scrap the Barter World right now? No. I mean, I think I still do want to hold on to trade for a little bit longer, plus soak up a little bit of damage off our opponent. Yeah, so much discard. So how much trade will I have? That is 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 3, 5, 8. So we can get the Brain World right now. So we definitely want to get rid of the Imperial Frigate, because we don't want to get that used against us. I'm kind of afraid that our opponent can pick up the Battle Cruiser. I will leave the Blob World in play, just because, one, maybe we can get it, you know, next turn or something. And two, like, yes, it can be scrapped for a bit of trade, but it's not that great of a card, and that trade is going to be a decreasing commodity as the game progresses. Okay. We got us a Blob Wheel, and I think it is worth putting it on top of our deck, just because it's going to be, you know, the longer we can get that Blob Wheel out, the better it's going to be. Yeah. Because, you know, obviously the more you play it, the better it is. You know, it's going to be scrapping our deck down. And just looking at, yeah, never mind those. Do I want to leave the Barter World around? Yeah, because, again, right now we have the long-term advantage with the Brain World thinning our deck. I will get rid of the Star Market just because our opponent does have some bases, and having a Star Market plus bases is never fun. And once again, we have the authority lead for a little bit. Meh. And these bases are about to get, you know, these bases are not going to hold well against the Blob Destroyer. So let's get rid of some scouts, because again, we're rushing our opponent down, and those Viper damage is worth something, while scouts not worth much. Okay. Okay, we still have this. So we do have a. That's 2, 3, 4, 5. Just short of the battle block. Sorry. Dump the blob. Also say kill the cruiser, just because our opponent has a mishmash deck, so maybe having that deactivate ally abilities might be bad for her. We don't want our opponent to have that. Okay. What do I buy now? For sure we want the battle pod, maybe the Brain World. We'll think about that. Nuke the missile bot. Okay, so we have up to 3 trade. We can get the Blob Wheel. We can scrap something out of the trade row with the Blob Destroyer, but honestly, I think I like how the trade row is now. So I'm not going to buy anything to disrupt it. I'm not going to scrap anything with the Blob Destroyer. I'm just going to leave the trade row as it is. Destroy the Royal Redoubt with the Blob Destroyer. Get to authority here. Do I scrap that for damage? So that's going to leave them at 13. Which, I mean, we have Fatal in our deck then, but they might be able to get some trade, and again, I don't want the Barter World flopping around in our deck, even though maybe our opponent was never going to destroy it anyways, but meh. Are we gonna top deck Fatal? Dun 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 dun. Well, we need to play the Battle Screecher and Blob Fighter to see. Again, do I want to get rid of the mech world from the trade row? Yeah, it's annoying and it helps our opponent's mishmash deck kind of work better. We got Fatal. Hell to the yeah. So there you saw a way to win this game. I just played a very conservative offensive game, knowing the fact that I had the energy shield slowing my opponent down a little bit. I had the starting authority advantage, and my opponent had, a mishmash deck. So by using those battle screechers to scrap cards that would fit into that like bunch of cheap cards that need ally abilities to be good strategy that our opponent had, I was able to persevere. But honestly, the AI definitely misplayed it. But yeah, I think all these missions are balanced around the fact that as a human player, you should be smarter than the AI. So I'll take credit for beating the AI, even if it is not the smartest thing in the world. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. If I missed anything, please put it in the comments. There was a lot of places in this video where I was, going back and forth. I feel like maybe did I, under scrap from the trade row, over scrap from the trade row? Did I use my salvage operation at the right time just to pull that blob world on top of my deck early once I got it? Should I have popped the energy shield at some point? Throw all that in the comments. I always love to see some good strategy advice. And yeah, beyond that, thank you very much for watching. Have a nice day. Bye.